What do you get when you merge two Presbyterian churches? Well, if it's Friendship Presbyterian Church in Chicago, you'll find something different than your traditional church. In fact, they even meet in a railroad station. For more, let's welcome Reverend Shauna Bowman, pastor of Friendship Presbyterian. We also welcome Emily Sutton, one of the church elders. And we welcome Reverend Jan Edmiston, interim associate executive for ministry at the Presbytery of Chicago. I'm excited to hear about this, y'all. Can you tell us, first of all, how these two Presbyterian churches came together in a nutshell?
Originally, there were 5 churches in conversation about what it might be like to create a new church. And out of that, we spent probably a year and a half, close to 2 years, in transformation conversations. And when it came down to it, there were 2 churches that merged together, Norwood Park and St. Andrew.
Okay, and both of those were relatively traditional congregations. What have you kept from your original congregations, and what have you changed now that you're Friendship?
Well, I suppose the biggest change was that we got rid of our church buildings. We moved completely out of our buildings and decided we wanted to be more in touch with the community, and we wanted to focus on mission instead of building upkeep. So that was a given. We also looked at creatively changing the way we were doing church. We figured a lot of the old traditions were fine, but we needed to do something a little more energizing, a little more now with the culture we live in.
And now you're in a train station. Yeah. Shauna, how does that work?
It works really great. I think that one of the first questions that I asked, and I've only been the pastor there a few months, and so I've come into this in a really wonderful part of the journey where they have done a lot of really good hard work, and now they're in this new space imagining a future together. So the train station is a working metro station in Norwood Park, and the train stops mostly about every hour in the rush hours. It comes more often. And so our hope is to be in this public space in a new way, and not to just create church in the old way in this new building, but to remember what we learned, which is that the church is really the gathered group of people, and that the space that we find ourselves in is our opportunity to meet the needs of the community. And so the questions that we ask ourselves are, how do we do church in this space that's not a church building, that has multiple access points for the public to come in and interact with us?
It's very much a part of the community. Jan, how has the Presbytery been able to support this?
The Presbytery, I think our job is basically to get out of the way. When congregations are wanting to be creative, I think to get out of the way and let them do what they're supposed to be doing. And to encourage any way we can to throw out other options that churches could look at, to suggest congregations that might want to do this kind of thing in the conversations of how to be a more thriving church in the 21st century. That's really our job. And but a lot of it really depends on the congregation and the leadership in terms of finding people who are willing to let things go, like a building or the traditional way of being the church.
And doing a lot of hard work, I'm sure.
Yes.
If I went to Friendship Presbyterian next week, what would I find?
You'd find a very energetic and welcoming group of people who would invite you to come on in, have a seat, and enjoy being around. You probably get more questions than you're used to getting, but it's a very welcoming group.
And in spite of the train coming and going, does the worship service itself look very different?
I think in some ways we rock a pretty traditional worship service. We are still committed to being Presbyterian, so we have a fairly traditional flow of liturgy, but we work to be as participatory as possible in that, inviting people to step in and be the voices of the worshiping community, so that it's not a front person, but a more centered way of worship. And we don't have a lot of the things you associate with a traditional sanctuary. So we have this one big space that we do everything in. And so we come in on Sunday morning and the chairs are set up in kind of a half round circle, and we do worship, and then immediately after worship we break and everybody moves chairs and the tables come out and we have fellowship time together in the same space. And then in midweek we have lunch in there, and once a month we do a concert series. So it's all this one space, and I think that it helps us remember not to become too attached to preserving it, because we have to keep transforming it for each new event or activity.
That's an important lesson.
Yeah.
Is mission something that's important to Friendship Presbyterian?
Absolutely. That's been our main focus. We wanted to focus on mission and put our time and energy and our money into that. And it's part of our mission vision statement, and it's part of everything we do. We had just a long list today in our stewardship discussion of all the different missions and ministries we're involved in. So it's key to what we do.
Okay. Jan, we hear that a lot of mainline Protestant churches are on the decline these days. Is an alternative congregation more like Friendship Presbyterian something we might see more of in the future?
I think so. I think we'll see all kinds of different ways of being the church, and it really depends on your context, and it depends on who is involved and really what the neighborhood is like and what the needs of the neighborhood are. I think we'll still have some very traditional congregations, but I think that increasingly churches are realizing they need to minister outside the walls of their building and not just within the walls. So whatever the community looks like, it really does depend. And so I think we're going to see a wide variety of different ways of being the church.
Could you tell us a little bit about your own faith journeys and how perhaps you've ended up in a congregation like Friendship?
I could say I grew up there. I grew up in St. Andrew, and have kind of gone along with it all through life, with a period there between getting out of high school and coming back when I had my first child, which I think is pretty typical. But got into working on committees and being a part of session and doing it the old traditional way for many years, and struggling through some questions of, how are we going to survive? We've got the typical dropping membership and other people retiring and not new people coming in. So there were some bumps and scrapes along there, and wondering whether we would continue. We had a couple of merger conversations that fell through, but ultimately, finally, got the word from God, got the inspiration and the vision, and kind of had a change of perspective, where it was more about what can we do out here in this community that God's given us, as opposed to what can the community do for us. So it's not about bringing people in, it's about serving the people that are there.
Yes.
And Shauna, as a relatively new part of this community, what excites you about BC?
A lot of things. I think I was doing work with the Chicago Presbytery before taking this call, thinking about transformation with congregations. And so when I encountered Friendship, it's such a core piece of their story is one of transformation. And so to get to be a part of that and to lend my part in what that dream will be and how we envision that has been really exciting so far, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that unfold. I think that transformation is a scary thing to imagine for churches, and a lot of us get stuck at the part where we have to do a lot of letting go and a lot of dying to some things to be able to exhibit this kind of resurrection experience. And I love that Friendship has already taken some of those really important steps and have done a lot of letting go, and now have this kind of really beautiful, bright future ahead of them. And there's such a wonderful sense of energy and community. Every Sunday I have this, that I'm with them, I have this sense of kind of we're in this together, and we're so willing to try anything I ask of them. They just say, oh, okay, and they come right along, and I love that about them.
Can you tell us why the words friendship and hospitality are heard so often around your church?
It's one of our taglines that we decided we needed to have a focus even within mission, because mission is so broad. And by looking at the things we've just gravitated toward naturally, many of them have to do with hunger and with hospitality. And I think being a friendly group of people, hospitality is something we do just naturally. And so we've made that our tagline, if you will, fighting hunger and offering hospitality. Says it all.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you, Reverend Bowman, Emily, and Jan for being here today. I'm Polly Toner for Different Drummers and the Greater Chicago Broadcast Ministries. Keep the faith.